This is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. Today we're going to do a first for the show, actually. I'm going to do a review based on a listener request. So a listener reached out to me to review the 2006 Will Ferrell film Stranger Than Fiction. So that'll be the movie I discuss on today's show. I have not seen the movie, so I was glad to get the recommendation to check out a movie that I had not seen before. But before we get into that, let me give you some information about the show. Again, this is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. You could listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts now. So check it out there. You can also watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The handle for Twitter is @BendYourEarPod. That's also the handle for YouTube. And the Facebook page is Let Me Bend Your Ear. If you watch this on video, you'll see a QR code on your left-hand side there. If you want to support the show, that'd be great. This is a one-man operation. Anything that you choose to donate to support the show will go to the costs it takes for me to host the podcast. So if you can do that, that'd be great. And also, if you can like the social posts that I have on Twitter especially, that'd be great. And if you rate and review, I hope you give it 5 stars. If you enjoy it, that'll help the show get more exposure when people are searching for a new movie podcast. You can email the show at bendyyourearpodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can email suggestions, like I said, like this show. If you want me to review a particular movie, I'm definitely open to suggestions, so feel free to email me or send me a note on Twitter. You can also go to the website. Every show there till episode 1 is available. The website is letmebendYourEar.com. So if you can do that, that'd be great as well. And if you don't want to use the QR code to donate to the show, you can also go to the Twitter page and hit the tip button. And if you want to donate there, that'd be great as well. All right, so let's get into the review. So I'm going to be reviewing the 2006 film Stranger Than Fiction, starring Will Ferrell, Emma Thompson, and Zoe Deschanel, directed by Marc Forster, who also directed Monsters Ball. He directed, I believe, one of the James Bond movies. I forgot which one. I think it was Skyfall, but I'm not positive on that. But I've heard of this movie. I know this movie. This is one of Will Ferrell's forays into drama. So obviously, with comedic actors such as Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, they've segued into to drama with varying degrees of success, and this is one of Will Ferrell's forays into that. So this movie I would characterize as a drama fantasy film. So basically, the premise of the movie is Will Ferrell plays a IRS auditor. He's an IRS agent named Harold Crick. So as the movie opens, you get to see kind of the life that he leads, which is very regimented. He sticks to a schedule, he lives alone. We find out early in the film that he did have a fiance, but they broke up. They really never get into why. But he's living by himself. He lives a very regimented life. He's all about numbers. He's great at numbers. He's great at doing math, and he's great at his job. So just a kind of a mundane existence of a man who's very good at his job. So as he's going to work every day, you see this, like I said, there's a montage of him going to work at the same time every day. And as he goes to work one particular day, there's an issue with his watch. So his wristwatch stops working, and he needs to rewind it to get it to where it needs to be correctly. So as he's doing that at the bus stop, he starts to hear a female narrator's voice. And the voice is telling him that if he does this, it's going to lead eventually to his death. So, of course, Harold is looking around to see who's talking, because, of course, his first reaction would be, all right, somebody in this crowd of people at the bus stop is speaking. And, of course, he sees that that's not the case. And then, of course, the next step is to see if anybody else hears what he's hearing. So, of course, he doesn't really know what's going on. He's kind of, discombobulated. He goes to work. He starts to hear conversations being narrated by this narrator as he's having them real time. So, of course, he's freaking out as to what could be causing this. And obviously, he gets more frantic about it as well. So he's also assigned to audit a baker named Anna Pascal, who's played by Zoe Deschanel. So he comes to find out that she's intentionally not paying her taxes as a protest. So he gets to know her, as he's having this issue with the narrator, and kind of his life is kind of a little bit frantic. So we come to find out that this narrator has the voice of an author played by Emma Thompson. So she is an author, and I'm just grabbing her character name here. Her name is Karen Eiffel. So Karen Eiffel is a reclusive author. She is an author of much renown who is trying to write a novel and has writer's block. So she's basically a recluse, and the publishing company sends an assistant to help her out, played by Queen Latifah. Her name is Penny, to try to help her push her through her writer's block so she can complete this book. So these are the two main characters. You have the Karen Eiffel character, Will Ferrell's character. So as the movie progresses, he continues to hear the voices. He ends up going to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist suggests that he sees a literary professor to maybe help him with the voice that he's hearing in his head, because there's really nothing that he can do for him. So Will Ferrell visits Professor Jules Hilbert, who's played by Dustin Hoffman, discusses with him, what's going on. At first, he's really not too interested in helping him, but then as Will Ferrell is describing the things that the narrator is saying to him, the professor notices a specific style, literary style, of what Harold is repeating to him, that he's being narrated, the things that he says is being narrated to him, and it piques his interest. So he pretty much assigns Harold to kind of narrow down who it might be. So there's a series of authors that the professor suggests, and they're trying to narrow this down, trying to figure this out. And in investigating it and going through it, the professor tells him that he thinks that it is Eiffel's work. So he's a big fan of her work. He's one of her biggest fans. So he thinks that the narrator is Karen Eiffel, the author. But the bad news for Harold, as the professor tells him, is that all her books are tragedies, is what she writes. And in every book that she writes, the protagonist dies. So that's the end of every one of her books. And so if that's correct, and if that's who Harold is hearing, then just like he was told in the beginning, his manipulating of his watch is going to ultimately lead to somehow him dying. So once Harold receives this information, obviously he's not thrilled about it, and he sets about trying to figure out how to avoid this fate. So that's the main thrust of the film, and that's really the main driver of how the plot moves forward. So when I was watching this movie, before I get into what I like and what I dislike, it reminded me of another fantasy film, and I have not reviewed it for this podcast, but it reminded me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, with ironically with Jim Carrey, another comedic actor, foraying into drama. And that film is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. So I will review it at some point on the show, but it reminded me of that movie. Stranger Than Fiction reminded me of Eternal Sunshine because of the fantasy elements of it. The fanciful way it kind of, tells a story that, is a complete fantasy. So I really felt shades of that when I was watching this film. Now, the things that I liked about the movie, the performances are good. Will Ferrell is good. Dustin Hoffman is really good. Well, of course, he's always really good. He's one of my favorite actors. He's great here. He's always very good. Zoe Deschanel's fine. She's good as well. Will Ferrell's performance, though, is very low-key. He has some moments of outbursts that may be typical Will Ferrell, but for the most part, it's a very low-key performance. And he does a good job really portraying how the events would affect him, something like this insanity happening to him, and how he responds to it and what he tries to do to avoid what he thinks his fate is destined to be, which is of course dying. So as the movie progresses, he basically starts to live his life. He starts to date Anna, and while trying to figure out how to navigate what's going on. So again, with the fanciful elements going on here, that's the things that I liked about it. Now, as far as what I didn't like about it, and that's probably too strong of a term, I think going back to my comparison of Eternal Sunshine, this movie just kind of went along, the story went along, but it didn't really hit me in the way I think it was meant to. Like I said, there's really nothing I didn't like. It seemed to me that as the story progressed, I don't know, it just did I didn't connect to the story in the same way I connected to the story of Eternal Sunshine. So to me, that was a big drawback. Like I said, if you were asked me, what didn't you like about it, I don't think I can give you a specific, I didn't like this, didn't like that. It's really more of an overall feeling as I was watching the film. I just didn't really connect to it in a deeper, meaningful way. Now, I think it's got deeper themes in it that it tries to portray, about, the life you lead, making changes in your life to make you happy, the things that are important. Things like that, I think, are portrayed in the movie. And for that, I give it a lot of credit. One of the reviews that I read of the movie, and this is something that I've echoed in podcasts, especially over the last couple of years. The thing that's good about this movie is, and I'll continue to ring this bell because I think it's important, dramas, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, especially if you listen to this podcast on a regular basis, there is a dearth of adult-oriented dramas that are aimed for adults, that are not comic book movies, superhero movies, sequels, reboots, anything like that. And like I always say, with the disclaimer, not that I don't love a Transformers movie or a Marvel movie or whatever IP is used, as long as it's executed correctly. But with that being the dominant genre right now, that's pretty much overtaken Hollywood, it's really, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I think it's more of a bottom line business thing. It's really squeezed out the, as I always like to say, mid-budgeted dramas aimed at adults. So a movie like Stranger Than Fiction is a welcome respite from those type of movies, and I'm glad I still watched it, even though I didn't connect to it like I did with Eternal Sunshine. I really appreciated watching it, and I'm glad the listener suggested that I review it, because it's a movie I'd known about, and just never got around to watching it. So I'm glad the suggestion really pushed me to watch this movie, and that's what I think is the biggest plus. If you're looking for a different type of movie, a movie you don't normally see, from a performance from Will Ferrell that you don't normally see, I would recommend it on those terms. And I think those movies are important, and I'll still champion those. And especially when I see ones that are really good, I'll definitely champion those types of films to watch. Hopefully, the newer ones in theaters, but even ones that something like this is that's back cataloged. There's always value in seeking out those movies, especially if you're looking for something different, and you're either tired of or really not a big fan of the main types of movies that you're getting now in the cineplexes. So I definitely would recommend it on that. If you're a fan of Will Ferrell, I would recommend it. And again, like I said, you've got some very good performances. Will Ferrell, Dustin Hoffman, specifically. Like I said, the biggest drawback for me is I didn't connect to it on a deeper level than maybe was intended. So that's, like I said, maybe when you watch it, I know the listener that recommended it to me is a huge fan of the film, thought it was really good, and that's great, and I appreciate the recommendation to watch it. I definitely was happy that I did. Like I said, I love to watch, as I get older, I don't really get to watch a lot of offbeat movies as much as I did when I was younger, when I had time to watch movies all the time and have access to the offbeat ones. The beauty of now is I can revisit some offbeat ones that I've either seen or not seen before, with all the means that you can have at your disposal to watch them digitally and otherwise. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and give Stranger Than Fiction, I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5, So on that scale, it's a I'll give it a mild recommendation for me. Like I said, for the reasons that I stated, if you're a fan of Will Ferrell, if you're looking for an offbeat one, it may be one you enjoy. Like I said, it really the 3-star review is really more reflective of, not because I didn't like the film per se. It's really more reflective of the fact that I just didn't connect to the story and the level that I wanted to. But again, the pluses make it worth it if you want to check it out. You've got Will Ferrell, you've got Dustin Hoffman, and I forgot about Emma Thompson, who's really good as well, as Eiffel, the author. So she's definitely very good. Emma Thompson's always great. So I'm going to give Stranger Than Fiction 3 stars out of 5. Again, 2006 release, directed by Marc Forster, Stranger Than Fiction. So again, I want to thank the listener for suggesting this movie to review. And again, if you have a movie you'd like me to review, you can either email the show at bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll definitely take a look at it, your recommendation, and then possibly review it for the show. Or you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm always there. That's probably the quickest way to get a hold of me, even quicker than email. So if you want to DM me or send me a tweet about a movie you'd like me to review, I'd be happy to check that out. And again, I want to thank everyone that's listened to the show, that's been downloading the show. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you're watching the show on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, and follow me on Twitter. Like I said, you can watch the show on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And again, if you're watching the show, either when I do it live or later on when it's on, if you can, like I said, feel free. If you want to support the show, like I said, the QR code is right there. And like I said, this is a one-man operation, so any donations to support the show goes directly into the cost to produce and host the podcast. So if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. I'd really appreciate it. And also, like I said, you can use the tip jar on Twitter for that as well. So I really appreciate that. And again, I want to thank everybody that listens and follows. And like I said, if you do see my tweets out there, just retweet them if you don't mind. That'd be great. And feel free to interact with me. I love talking movies with people on Twitter. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And the other thing you do, if you're a fan of the show, if you can, if you are listening on whatever podcast app you choose to listen to, if you can rate and review, especially if it's on Apple or Google Podcasts, 5 stars if you really like it. Again, the more ratings and reviews a show can obtain when people are seeking out a new movie podcast, the show will show up higher in the search results. So that's why if you can rate and review, I'd really appreciate it. So again, thank you for listening to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I'm Frank, the host of the show. And again, I am giving Stranger Than Fiction, the 2006 Will Ferrell film, 3 stars out of 5. Thank you again for listening and watching, and I'll be back very soon with a new movie review. I think, barring any issues, I'll be reviewing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So hopefully that show will be out Thursday or Friday. The movie, I believe, opens on Wednesday. I'll have the show up hopefully on Thursday or Friday. I will announce on Twitter when the show will be available. But that should be the next episode, so I'll be reviewing that. Looking forward to it, to see if he continues to maintain that high level on these last couple of Mission Impossible films. So again, I'll look out for that one, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And again, thank you for listening, and have a fantastic week. See you very soon with a new review.